What's up, guys? What's going on? Welcome to episode number 15 of the Spun Today podcast. I'm your host, Tony Ortiz. Thank you very much for listening. This is the first bonus episode of the podcast. It's going to be a much shorter episode than usual. Outside of this intro and the outro, which is going to be quick in and of itself. It's going to be probably like 15 to 20 minutes long. And it's considered I'm considering it a quote-unquote bonus episode because it's outside of the normal schedule. For those of you that listen, this podcast normally comes out every other Thursday, and this one is in one of the Thursdays in between. It's kind of a tester to see the feedback that I get back, and if anybody finds it interesting or helpful or useful in any way. I thought it was kind of funny. I initially thought it was a good idea, and then while putting it together, it's kind of like, who the hell would want to listen to this? I mentioned it in the previous podcast that I was going to put this out, which is why I didn't decide not to last minute. So whatever, just putting it out, and you guys let me know what you think. What it is for the audiobook podcast that I put out every so often from short stories that I've written, which you guys can find at www.spuntoday.com/short stories. I put out an audiobook for each of the short stories, right, in the form of a podcast. For this, the one that I'm referencing in this episode is episode number 14, if you guys want to listen to the actual polished final version of the podcast. And for those audiobook podcasts, I actually edit them because I try to kind of sort of make them sound professional, like an actual audiobook. And I fucking hate editing so much. It takes me hours and hours to do it. Because one, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Like literally using GarageBand, and the way I do it from like start to finish, which is part of the reason for me putting out this particular podcast, so you guys could kind of like see the behind the scenes of it. From start to finish, the way it works is I pretty much read out the story, kind of like in character or whatever you want to call it, and I try to read it from beginning to end with all the fuck ups in between. Then I transfer that file onto GarageBand and I go through it manually. And, if I fuck up or if I don't like the way something sounds while I'm reading it, I'll like repeat the sentence over and over again. And I'll reread it until I feel that it sounds right and like the tone is right and getting across what I want to get across, I guess. And that's pretty much how it works. So in between, there's a lot of like stopping and rereading sentences and burping and yawning and shit like that, sucking my teeth and drinking water or whatever. So all that shit I pull out and I edit the story together in a cohesive fashion. And then you guys get the polished version of the audiobook, which probably still sucks, but yeah, that's what you get. Now, all the crap that I pulled out, I'm putting in this episode, so you guys can skip through or rummage through and just kind of like see that part of the process of what goes into like the polished end version of it. Whether you deem it good or not, this is the stuff that comes out in order to produce that. So whatever, I wanted to put it out for that reason. And if it works out, if you guys enjoy it or whatever, let me know, and I'll do it for future episodes also. Maybe I'll try to one or two more times, or maybe I'll continue doing it, because regardless, I'm still pulling out like those pieces where the fuck ups are, so the data is there anyway. So why not turn it into like a little bonus episode? Maybe somebody could get some usefulness from it, or hopefully somebody can give me some pointers on it. and let me know, that's not the way you record an audiobook, you fucking idiot. This is the way you're supposed to do it, blah, blah, blah. Because I literally didn't, look into it at all, or how professionals do it, I guess. I just pretty much decided to read it and make it sound fucking, make it flow together and do it this way. So if you guys have any pointers or anything like that, by all means, let me know. And that's pretty much it. I'm going to keep this intro short and sweet, just like the episode. Again, it's going to be I think 15 minutes worth of clips. And just to give you a heads up, it's not coherent at all. It doesn't necessarily all go together. It jumps from one point in the story to the other. If you guys listen to the previous episode, you'll recognize that. And yeah, it's just a string of fucked up clips, and I didn't like the way it sounded or different tones and shit like that, which dubbing bloopers for the Ball and Chain short story episode. Let me know what you guys think. Aside from that, as always, you guys can follow me on Twitter at Spun Today, SPUN today, and on Instagram as well at Spun Today. Like the Facebook fan page, facebook.com/Spun Today. On the Facebook page, you can also sign up to the newsletter, which is on the left-hand side of the page, if I'm not mistaken. You can also sign up to the newsletter by visiting spuntoday.com/contact, and at the bottom of the page, you just need to stick your first and last name and email address in and sign up to the newsletter. And you're not going to get bombarded with bullshit emails or anything like that. It's pretty much just to let you know, hey, there's a new short story out or a new podcast we just posted. So go ahead and listen. And to support the podcast, the best way that you guys can do that is to rate and review the podcast on both iTunes and or Stitcher. And, that helps the podcast get some more exposure. More people listen to it. And we'll get put onto it. Also, if you want to help financially, a way that you can do it, which does not cost you a penny, is to go to the Amazon banner on my page, which is also on the contact page, but up at the top of the website, and click on the Amazon banner, and that will take you to Amazon's website, where you can do your shopping like you normally do. And it does not cost you anything extra, but Amazon kicks me back a few pennies on the dollar just for driving traffic to their website. And that's pretty much it, guys. Let me know what you guys think of the episode, and I'll see you guys on the other end of this. We have reason to believe beyond the shadow of a doubt that you poisoned your patients with the ricin that led to their eventual... We have reason to believe beyond the shadow of a reasonable doubt. We have reason to believe beyond the shadow of a doubt. You plead ignorance, but I see deliberate malpractice. Blah. Like the other lifers in this block did. But that's about 7.5 months more than other inmates take to lose their shit. But that's about 7.5 months more than other inmates take to lose their shit. On his way home, Charles ran a few errands as he routinely did after visiting his... It still seemed like a lot to leave behind, which he inherited after the brain aneurysm-induced seizure. A house, which he inherited after the brain aneurysm. All he needed to find was a... Charles's world was not scheduled to exist outside and around every other Wednesday. His days now consisted of submitting appeal requests. Consoling his estranged... Many a day, frustrated parents came in to yank their freeloading 8-year-olds out of the bakery. Frustrated parents came in many a day. Even the aggravated parents would take one of these delicious bite-sized sugar cookies. To go when they came to get their kids. Even the aggravated parents would, when they came to get their kids. All birthday cakes and bunches of Sarah was an amazingly artsy baker, but the business wouldn't have been in the green without Charles's oversight. Without Charles's oversight. Her determination and his tenacity. On that Wednesday, she gave him detailed instructions on how to set up the place. In just under 3 weeks, he brought pictures in to press up against the blah 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 blah. In just under 3 weeks, Charles learned a couple of her After the grand opening, business wasn't what you would call booming. After the grand opening, business wasn't in their new... Charles estimated that he had this strange quirk about never tasting anything he baked. But he was I think they'll be a hit again. They were both right. Midway through month 4, Sarah's Bakery... You can't be upset with me. In a storage garage a few miles from their old home. He went to the 24-hour access storage place a few miles away. It looked like those little garages you see on reality shows like Storage Wars. He opened it and went inside. He was taken aback by some of the medical supplies she had there. He wrote it off as supplies she took from her hospital gig before she began to bake full-time. But how long has she been hiding this place? Charles was upset about Sarah's secret place, but knew he could never. She pouted and in an innocent little girl voice asked, because the fall semester starts in 2 weeks and orientation is a bit earlier than usual. I'll definitely be here for you next Wednesday. I hate them for taking you away from me, but I do want you to make a good impression on your first day. A little ego stroking never hurt anyone, right? A little ego stroking never hurt anyone, right? Having him repeat it. Lastly, my filing cabinet has some paperwork. I told my public defendant about it, but you know how they all but just some one is a copy and says copy on it. C.O. McNeil put the cuffs on and led Sarah back. He stopped in front of her cell and turned. I see the way you look at me, McNeil, she told him as she stared raptly into his eyes. She told him as she... Yes, sir, she told him. I'll do anything you say. Yes, sir. Yes, sir, she told him. I'll do anything you say. She reached down with both hands. He cracked half a smile. Blah. You could do whatever you wanted to me if it weren't for these cameras around. You could do whatever you wanted to me if it weren't for all of... Ooh, she said with a seductive rasp in her voice as she fondled him for a bit. You know, you could do whatever you wanted to me if it weren't for all these cameras around. She licked and lit. Then she let go and took a step back. C.O. McNeil didn't say a word. She poked her hands out through the doors opening, and he removed the restraints. Where was I? She licked and bit her bottom lip. Then she let go and took a step backwards into her cell. C.O. McNeil didn't say a word as he slid the red steel doors shut. She poked her hands out through the doors opening. On his way home, Charles passed by the storage unit to pick up what Sarah told him he needed. And also grabbed the manila envelope to mail it in. Most of the students in the lecture hall took one on the way in. He thinks they may have even distracted some of them from taking part in the usual rumors. But he still overheard a few of the students on their way out after class. Yeah, I know. But I heard she was insanely jealous and she caught him cheating with a student. Then months after, they investigated and found that 3 or 4 of the patients. Then months after, they investigated and found that 3 or 4 of the patients that died under her watch were actually poisoned. He grabbed his messenger bag and noticed he never mailed Sarah's evidence for the. In the days that followed, a few flirty looks and winks. Charles met. Soon enough, it was visiting Wednesday again, and Charles approached the double pane glass, eagerly waiting for Sarah to walk through the double doors that separated the visiting area from the housing units. After their visit, C.O. McNeil led Sarah back. After her visit, he took in a deep breath of her essence and then whispered into her ear right before he... I disabled that. I disabled. What was it? She used both hands, which were still cuffed, to grab McNeil by the belt and pull him into her cell. They maximized that 15-minute window of privacy and quenched the pent-up sexual frustration they'd been flirting with for weeks. By Saturday night, there were at least half a dozen of these visits. Sarah turned around to face him, with a mischievous smile on her face. She used both hands, which were still cuffed, to grab McNeil by the belt and pull him into the cell with her. They maximized that 15-minute window of privacy and quenched the pent-up sexual frustration they'd been flirting with for weeks. By Saturday night, there were at least half a dozen of these visits, mixed with plotting and scheming. Are you sure the evidence? That could take weeks, months. That won't be an issue. The most that would happen is a fine and or suspension. Then by the time they arrest him, they'll be so eager to sweep your escape under the rug that they'll acquit you of all charges and streamline his sentencing. By Thursday night, they had every angle measured and every wrinkle. By Thursday night, when the sun fell midway down the sky, just pull down that yellow strap to open it. Then just pull down that yellow strap to open it. They walked out to the yard. They normally did. McNeil unlocked the gate that led to the employee parking lot. To, quote, get a pack of smokes. While his back was turned, and she ran toward and into the 3 miles plus of forest opposite the parking lot, which surrounded the Muncie DOC. He repeated out of breath in an Oscar-worthy performance. There would be a failed attempt, and they'd spend a month in the hole. By the time Warden Glenn came down to give the search order, while the prison nurse finished A rock wouldn't cause a wound this narrow and deep. A rock wouldn't cause a... Nurse Kelly chimed in. You can't be trusted to do your job. You can't be trusted to do your job properly. After gathering a few things from his locker, he went out to his car, opened up the trunk, and placed the box in. After gathering a few things, Sarah, do you need anything? I'm sure there'll be a checkpoint further ahead, and we can't risk a camera spotting you. So I can't let you out until we get to my apartment. No, I'm fine. There was a checkpoint about a quarter mile after the forestry surrounding the prison. McNeil approached, slowed down. Tor said jokingly, "A month and a half, no pay." Not that easy, man. "A month and a half, no pay," McNeil responded. Sarah also accessed Charles. She recognized the address Charles gave Amy from the return address on the holiday cards he had sent her. Sarah, now a short-haired brunette, she had another key stashed. It was right before dawn on the fourth day. His eyes look worried as he stares out of the window above the sink. About 30 minutes later, he comes to as his vision deglazes enough for him to evaluate his surroundings. His arms and legs are tie-wrapped. Is this what you've been? In one fluid motion that almost... She walks around behind him and slides her hands down the front of his. She leans about what he had just heard. She duct taped his mouth again as he squirmed and screamed and cried about what he had just heard. They'll read you your rights and book that you mailed in, quote, for me to get the ricin and the syringes. Did you happen to notice your class size go down a bit? Oh yeah. You also gave them the location of the storage facility you've been going to fairly often, which has syringes like these in dozens of containers with different levels of ricin doses. And trust me, the alternative would be worse for all of us. A successful one? The judge asked, surprised. And you buy this bullshit? Okay, Glenn. You have a verbal arrest warrant granted. Yeah, if this blows up in your face, I won't back up or document this. Though. Back at the apartment, she squeezed out a few drops from the syringe as she flicked it, and then shot it. Sleep tight, baby. She tied Amy's wrists. He came to as his apartment was being raided. He tried to explain, but they saw it as resisting and clubbed. And he said, I heard you, Jimenez. Yeah, you miserable. Charles signed in, we're a redheaded woman with big sunglasses on. Make sure you sit and think about what you've done to me, and if any of them were worth it, said Sarah. Make sure you sit and think about what you've done to me. She humped. Charles nails him with a right hook. Two other guards rush in. It was her. She was here. He yelled out. The nurse was called and comes in with a syringe. He wakes up in a slightly bigger room, restrained to an unfamiliar bed. The time that has lapsed between... A nurse turns to the doctor in charge of the psych ward. All that was said before things went dark. Hours later on Interstate 64, a redheaded woman could be seen, alone at the wheel of a red 2002 Mustang, flowing through in some of what she no longer needed. And that's the episode, guys. You guys are the fucking man if you sat through and listened through that, because I re-listened to some of it while putting it together and it was boring as shit. But like I said in the intro, maybe you or I, sometime down the line, will be able to get something constructive out of it. and benefit from it that way. If not, hope you guys enjoyed laughing at it or making fun of it or whatever. And that's pretty much it, guys. I'm going to keep the outro also short and sweet for the episode number 15, the first bonus episode of the Spun Today podcast, which is the ball and chain bloopers. As mentioned in the intro, you guys can support the podcast. The best way to do so is to rate and review on iTunes and or Stitcher. That helps the podcast get exposure. Also sign up to my newsletter, which can be found on facebook.com/Spun Today on the left-hand side, or also on my website, spuntoday.com/contact at the bottom of the page. To support financially, you can do 1, 2, or 3 of 3 things. You can shop at Amazon by going through the Amazon banner located at the top of my contact page on my website. It does not cost you anything extra, but Amazon kicks me back a few pennies on the dollar just for driving traffic to the website. Also, you can use the PayPal donation button, which is also located on my contact page if you would like to. And lastly, there's a photography section on the podcast, on the website rather, and you guys can go on there if you see pictures and shit like that you like, or if on my Instagram or Facebook you see pictures that you like. All of them are located also on this website called crated.com, crated.com/Spun Today. If you guys go there, you can actually order physical prints like posters and canvases and shit like that of those of that photography, and that's another way that you guys can help support if you would like to. And if not, you don't have to, obviously. Either way, guys, follow me on Twitter at Spun Today, on Instagram at Spun Today, and like the Facebook fan page at facebook.com/Spun Today. Really appreciate it. And lastly but not leastly, as always, substitute the mysticism with hard work and start taking steps in the general direction of your dreams. Thanks for listening.